What's up guys, this is Joe, and today I'm bringing you some Lawbreakers gameplay. If you're not familiar with the game, this is Cliff Bonesky's new game from Bosky Studios. Multiplayer only, competitive shooter in the ilk of games like Unreal, but to be honest a little bit faster paced with all the aerial movement systems and things like that. It really harkens back to games like Forsaken and Descent. As a child I played Forsaken a lot on the PlayStation 1 and N64, and it was like a multi-directional combat shooter where you could fly around in any direction, and it had all sorts of different like wacky sci-fi powers as well. This game kind of has like a similar 90s vibe to that as well. All the characters say like ridiculous like quote-unquote badass lines and things that you'd see from a 90s video game. So that's part of the appeal for me. I kind of think that harkens back to my childhood and those kind of early 90s edgy kind of games that people were making at the time, which Cliff Bonesky's obviously, for whatever reason, still kind of makes today. And some people will enjoy that, some people won't. But for me, the core appeal here is the movement system. I'm a big fan of Titanfall 2 and Titanfall 1, and any game where you can move quickly and you're forced to make a lot of decisions on the fly from moment to moment. That's what I really love, like moving through environments, seeing lots and lots of combat encounters, and having to make decisions constantly as you move from enemy to enemy, like piece of cover to cover, like environment to environment. Like the idea of being able to backpedal when you're shooting someone at like a rapid pace and move through the environment while continuing the firefight, that's really engaging because I'm constantly making skill-based decisions on whether I survive. Like every move I move backwards, if I'm going to move into an object, that might be the difference between me living and dying. So that's that map knowledge, that's that skill-based determinism to the gameplay that really comes out in the game with a high movement system. And like I say, that's really what I enjoy about Lawbreakers. Every character in this game, and in this character I'm using here as the combat medic, every character in this game has their own unique movement system. Most of them are fast paced. There's a couple that are a bit slower and have more defensive utility, but they can be kind of fun too. Some people enjoy this more than others, I suppose. Personally, I enjoy the faster paced characters, and one of those is the combat medic, another is the assassin and the wraith. They're all very fast characters. There's a few others as well. If you're into more like standard gameplay, there's a character called the Enforcer, which plays a bit more like boots on the ground Call of Duty style gameplay. I mean, he still jumps a lot, but you can still kind of like sprint and things like that. But yeah, for me, the appeal is the movement system and the options it creates and the decisions I'm forced to make from moment to moment gameplay. I think right there, my teammate wanted to leave and we were unsure of what we were doing. I think someone disconnected, then we waited to see if someone rejoined. Because these matches are actually very hard to win if you are a man down or two men down, etc. It becomes very, very difficult to win the game of CTF in this game. Especially because I think there's some sort of underlying skill-based matchmaking going on here, because when I first started to play in the beta, things were very, very easy. And then it seems we were getting harder and harder opponents, which makes sense, but for at times it feels it can be a bit one-sided, especially if like you say, you lose a teammate and you're in a game that's evenly skilled. Suddenly you're not in a game that's even anymore because it was evenly skilled when you had 5v5 and someone decided they were going to leave or whatever. Anyway, so the combat medic is the class I'm playing now, and that particular class is the support role in the game. In the beta there's only one support character, but in the full game there will be another one called the Harrier. But the combat medic's role basically is to support the enemy, support your allies with healing, and you can do that with armor 1 every 5 seconds or something along those lines. And then you can also use your grenade launcher to deal splash damage to enemies. And obviously you have your kind of jetpacks that you can get above them and deal a lot of damage from the sky like that. And you also have a secondary plasma pistol which recharges over time. So you don't need to explicitly reload it. It's a plasma pistol and it overheats with time. So if you're careful with the heat management, you can use it persistently and just kind of switch between your grenade launcher and that. Which I find really fun and really kind of skill based, remembering how much charge I had on that and going back to it at the right scenarios and finishing people off with it. I think it really is quite an interesting mechanic. Anyway. For the most part, I don't see many people playing the combat medic. People tend to stick with the more fast characters or more characters they're familiar with, like the Enforcer, which, as I said, plays like Call of Duty. But the combat medic has pretty incredible utility because a lot of the time it's hard to keep track of who needs healing, but in this game you also apply a small overshield to allies that don't need healing. So no matter what you're doing, as long as you can see someone on your team, you can help out a little bit. Like, you don't have to worry about like who's taking damage. You can just press R1 and like use your healing on a couple of guys, and at the very least it'll give them an overshield. And I really appreciate that little extra touch to the gameplay, kind of like making you useful without having to make you think quite as much what all your allies are doing. And that's one thing about this game, that unlike like other hero shooters like Overwatch, you don't have to worry quite so much what your allies are doing. It doesn't necessarily, like, your team composition isn't as important in this game. Like, if your team want to play 4 wraiths and you're going to be the only medic, then I haven't seen a problem with that so far, at least in casual play. At a certain level of play, obviously, it might be a factor, but at the level of play that everyone is at within the unranked, relatively unranked lobbies, and if there's an underlying MMR based system or whatever. But in the regular lobbies, it doesn't really matter what kind of team composition you have. You can make things work with your allies, especially if you're using like a support role and helping them out a little bit. And to be honest, for me, that's one of the aspects of the game that I really enjoy. In Overwatch and games like that, it's kind of frustrating to see your team pick like bad characters, like characters that don't fit the team composition, characters that aren't useful for your team at that particular moment in time. And at the same time, it's also frustrating to see your characters just use those characters in weird or unuseful ways. Whereas here, because you have quite a little bit more agency as an individual, you can kind of influence the match a little bit more as an individual. There's no particular counters to any particular class. You don't feel like you're playing a game rock, paper, scissors. So for instance, in something like Overwatch, if I'm playing Mercy and my tank goes down, I'm left to fight Genji, I know realistically I'm not going to win that fight. Here, I'm a healer and my team can die and I can be left in 1v1 versus any character in the game, and I know that I can still get myself out of that situation. I can still get myself out of it, I can still kill my opponent. Either way, I still have the agency to control my own outcome in the game. So in that way, I feel that even if my allies are bad, and even if my allies aren't playing the right team composition, they don't directly affect my enjoyment of the game. We might not win because they are terrible, but we won't affect me too severely that I'm not actually having fun. Because there are certain times in games like Overwatch where your team is so bad that you can't even leave your spawn, that you can't even do anything without being faced by the counter pick for your character, because your team is so busy like falling off a cliff somewhere because Zenyatta decided to place portals in a stupid position or something like that. And that just isn't fun to me. I like to be able to control my outcome in the game. I like to have a lot of influence if possible. So I enjoy this a little bit more than games like that, to be honest with you. Some of the gameplay in Lawbreakers does take a little bit of getting used to, because the game modes are variants on things like capture the flag, which obviously are familiar to a lot of people, but they all have little quirks. For instance, this one, you have to capture the uplink from the middle of the map, very similar to like a neutral capture the flag type game mode. But then you have to secure it in your base, and you have to leave it there for 1 minute, upload the data, I guess, and wait for that to happen. And then once that happens, you have to wait another 20 seconds to actually secure the point. Once you get into the flow of the game, it does make sense. Like, having to capture it at your base for a minute and hold it there adds an incredible intensity to these kind of like little areas at the back of the map. And you have these really intense, quick firefights going on, lots of action, lots of fun, lots of opportunity to use your like team powers, and lots of opportunity for like defensive characters like mine to kind of shine. So I really enjoy that, and I really enjoy that it's not just running around randomly kind of like grabbing the flag, running off, securing it, not really needing any teamwork necessarily. This kind of reinforces teamwork, reinforces a little bit of coordination. So I really like these little objective focus points that kind of have you holding on a particular point for a long period of time. And it's similar with other game types in the game. There's another capture the flag type mode called the battery upload, and that one's very similar to this, apart from the upload point is shared between both teams. So if one team charges it to like 50% of their base and then the other team steal it, then the other team gets to keep that charge and take it to their base, and they only need to get 50% more to get the point. And I think that's a really cool mode. Like, I don't really know what it adds in terms of like a game design perspective, but I know it makes it exciting, like, because you're constantly thinking like the idea of being able to like steal their point at 99% and then bring it back to your base. Like, I don't think, in terms of competitivity, I don't know how fair that is, but it's quite fun. So it's good to have, and it's always fair if you manage to capture it, and it's always fair. Everyone has equal opportunity. If they capture it at their base, they're at the stronger defensive position. You don't necessarily have an easy way to capture it. You have to earn that. So whichever point you earn it at, 99% or 1% or anything really, it's very much an uphill battle to get that. So right now I'm placing the uplink here because our team are actually 2-0 down. So that's not good. That's not good so far. But I think we do manage to make some form of comeback here, especially because I was concentrating a little bit more on the objective, realizing my team weren't doing it that well themselves, and not being funny to the rest of them, but they weren't capturing the point that frequently, they weren't bringing it back quite frequently. As a medic, usually I want to sit back and not have to worry about the objective while I heal my teammates that have the objective, so I'm usually kind of following my teammate with the objective, healing him, reinforcing the team there, trying to keep people off with the grenade launcher. Ideally, I don't want to pick up the objective myself because that makes me the target, and as the medic, I don't really want to be more of a target than I already am. People are already going to kind of take me out as soon as possible if they can, so it doesn't really make sense for me to make myself more of a target, especially as my team lose that kind of support effect if I die. So There's also other classes that are much faster than the medic, like the Wraith and the Assassin, that can really nip around the map with the objective and get to our base a lot faster. But again, as you see here, at this point I decided we're not going to lose this game, I'm going to capture this objective. And I used my ultimate here to heal myself, kill these two players, grab the objective, and just narrowly, with 50 HP left, sneak into the underside of my base and get it planted again. So we start the upload once more. And 2 more points and we'll have the win. So yeah. Like I say, I really enjoy the game. I do recommend, I mean the beta's over now. If you're watching this video then the beta is finished or finishing today, so you won't have time to play it. But if you like Titanfall, if you like the idea of playing something like Unreal or even Halo, then you should really enjoy this game. I mean, I really enjoyed it. The netcode is pretty smooth. There are some frame rate issues on the PS4 version, but generally it's pretty solid. As you can see here, I didn't have any issues in this very chaotic match. The frame rate issues that do exist seem on very particular maps or maybe combinations of classes, so hopefully that's something that Boss Key can fix with time, because it's not anything like explicit or deeply persistent throughout the game. Generally, most matches are quite smooth, and I have managed to have a good time in 90% of my matches in the game. So definitely recommend checking it out if you have the time. I'm going to leave you with this video, and I do recommend watching it if you have the time, because I think it's quite close and quite a fun match to watch. And there may be not that many medics playing the game, so it might be kind of good to watch a medic if you kind of are interested in kind of support gameplay. I know a lot of people like to play characters that do support the team, so if you want to see how support plays in this kind of game, in this case it's quite aggressively, then you can watch this gameplay. As always, this has been Chrono Joe. Hope you enjoyed watching. Catch you in another video, and peace out.
Uplink acquired. Your uplink connected. Kill streak. Your team scored. Uplink initializing. Uplink stolen. Uplink dropped. Uplink acquired. Your uplink connected.
Dispatching my drone.
Your uplink is at 25%.
Activated.
Your uplink is at 50%.
Death by science.
Your uplink is almost complete. Your uplink severed. Enemy uplink connected. Enemy uplink is at 50%.
Check up town.
uplink is almost complete. Kill streak. Enemy uplink
Dispatching
severed.
my drone.
Uplink dropped. Uplink stolen. Uplink dropped.
Death will be your only
Uplink
reality.
stolen. Enemy uplink connected.
Down incoming. Here comes help. Down incoming. Defense grid online.
Enemy uplink severed. Uplink dropped.
Death by science.
Uplink acquired. Your uplink connected.
My situation worsens.
Your team scored. You win.